Good day, everyone. I am Risa Fevibo Canegra, and the content of this video is all about using and evaluating instructional materials. And my companions with this topic are Teacher Erica Ermita, Teacher John Dave Ansal, Teacher Joel Aguanza, Teacher Giselle Gore, and Teacher Alma Remiao. But before I start, let me introduce you this quote. You should have a good idea of your destination, both in the overall purposes of education and in the everyday work of your teaching. If you do not know where you are going, you cannot properly choose a way to get there. So in your own opinion, what can you say about that quote? Very good! Having a good idea and using correct instructional materials for your topic will lead you to a successful discussion. So, instructional materials, these are the devices that assist facilitators in the teaching learning process. Instructional materials are not self-supporting, but they are supplementing teaching devices. One of the instructional material used to attain the instructional objectives is the field trip. Field trip make the students visualize of what the instructor or teacher teach. For an effective use of instructional materials, there are guidelines ought to be observed. First, the selections of instructional materials and second, their uses. In selections of instructional materials, these are the things that need to be considered or need to be observed. Does the material give a true picture of the ideas they present? So, to avoid misconception, it is always good to ask when the materials was produced. It should be timely. For example, about books. So, the books that we are using right now, since we are in the 21st century, must 2015 above. The next is, does the materials contribute meaningful content to the topic under study? Or does the materials help you to achieve the instruction's objectives? So, if the field trip is the materials for your discussion, then the student really understand of what you're talking because experiences are the best teachers. Next, is the physical condition of the instructional material satisfactory? Yes, it is important to consider, especially for BE Ed, because your audience or your students are elementary or, for example, kindergarten, to catch their attention. If your instructional materials is unpresentable, your audience or your student will not listen at all. Another factor to consider is there a teacher's guide to provide a briefing for effective use? Yes, it is important factor. For example, using overhead projector. There are students who didn't know to operate or use that overhead projector. So as a teacher, you should guide your student how to use that overhead projector. Next, is the materials aligned with the curriculum standards and competencies? So as a teacher, in selection your instructional materials, it should be aligned with the curriculum standards and competencies. For example, your topic is all about use and maintain farm tool and equipment. So as a teacher, you should provide concrete example like real bolo or real rake. Next is the materials culture and grades sensitive? Say yes. In a classroom settings, there are students who came from different cultures and different environment. So as a teacher, we should choose our words or materials that are going to use in presenting our topic. Another is the materials appropriate for the age, intelligence, and experiences of your learner. So for example, you are a grade 6 teacher. So your instructional materials must be fit for your grade 6 students, not for those grade 3 students. Next, does the use of materials makes learners collaborate with each other. These the materials promote self-study. And last, is the materials worth the time expends and effort involved? So, for example, a field trip, for instance, it requires a lot of money, effort, and time. But it is worth it because aside from the learner learned from the experience they've got, they enjoy and they explore different views. That's all for my part. And for the continuation, my companion teacher Erica will discuss you about the appropriate use of materials.
Since you already know what is an instructional media, let us proceed to the proper use of material. So to ensure effective use of instructional material, Hayden Smith and Thomas Nagel, 1972, book authors on instructional media, advise us to abide by the acronym PPF. So PPF means number 1 is prepare yourself, prepare your student, present your materials, and follow. Number 1 is prepare yourself. So as a teacher, we should know our lesson objectives or what we expect from the class after the session, and why we have selected such particular instructional materials. So say for example, majority of my students are visual learners. So me as a facilitator of learning or a teacher, I must present a variety of instructional materials that will suit to their learning preferences, such as images, graphic organizers, or engaging them in watching videos in delivering my lessons. Number 2 is prepare your students. So set class expectations and learning goals. Motivate your students and keep them interested and engaged. So based on my experience as a student, since we are in the 21st century, I get bored and has no interest in participating in the class if my teacher doesn't provide any captivating instructional materials. And in today's generation, the intervention of technology was already applied, so I prefer and I could easily learn through it. Number 3 is present the material. So under the best possible condition, using and presenting media and materials also requires rehearsal and a carefully planned performance. So say for example, you are planning to require your students in making a movie review to test their comprehension through film viewing. So you will prepare the materials needed. So like laptop, projector, so you must practice on how to use it so that when you arrive in the class, you will no longer experience any difficulty in using it. Because if you don't know how to manage or use it without any planning, time will be wasted. So the last step is follow-up. So it is another term for evaluating, and it happens right after the session. So this time, you will evaluate if the lesson objective was successfully attained or not. And of course, if your chosen instructional materials effectively helps in reaching or achieving the learning outcomes. And if not, this is the time to reassess or rethink another strategy or what instructional materials would suit to your students' learning preferences. As a teacher, our goal is to achieve every learning objectives. So how can we say that the learning objectives is already attained? Is through first performance tasks, quizzes, examinations, or asking questions, like letting your students to give their own idea or give their own understanding regarding to the topic that you are discussing.
So the 9 events of instruction by Robert GAGNE. Background to the model. Robert GAGNE, 1916 to 2002, was an educational psychologist who pioneered the science of instruction in the 1940s. His book, The Conditions of Learning, first published in 1965, identified the mental conditions that are necessary for effective learning. GAGNE created a 9-step process that detailed each element required for effective learning. The model is very useful for all types of learning. So the 9 events of instruction can be divided into 3 segments. First is preparation, second is instruction and practice, third is assessment and transfer. So the first is the gaining attention or reception. So in gaining attention or reception, we must begin with the learning session by gaining the attention of the learners, ensuring the learners are motivated to learn and participate in the activities by presenting a stimulus to gain their attention. This can be accomplished by presenting the learners with an introductory activity that engages the learner. So, for example, the best thing to do is that you need to give an activity before the lesson or the topic delivered. You need to give an activity which the students will participate, engage in that activity, like games, gaming, role playing, with a minimum time lang in minutes. So there are techniques for gaining learners attention include stimulate learners with novelty or surprise, pose thought provoking questions, have learners pose questions to be answered by other learners, present an intriguing problem, present a new interesting situation that are provokes curiosity, present meaningful and relevant challenge. So the second level is informing learners of the objective or expectancy. So after gaining their attention, inform the learners the learning objectives to help them understand what they will be learning during the session. So state what the learners will be able to accomplish during the session and how they will able to use the knowledge and apply it in a specific task or activity. So this allows the learners to organize their thoughts on what they will learn and help place them in a proper mindset. So another example is that the teacher must present the objectives on the left side of the blackboard here to guide the students on what they want, on what you want to learn with them and what they need to catch up the lesson in a specific task or in an hour. So there are examples of techniques for the objectives include they describe what they will be able to do at the completion of the session, describe required performance, describe criteria for standard performance, explain how their learning will benefit them. So third is stimulating recall of prior learning or retrieval. So help the learners make sense of new information by relating it to a something they already know or something they have already experienced. So to accomplish this, present the learner with an experience or cue that stimulates their prior knowledge and make connections between what they are learning and their previous learning. When people learn something new, it is best to correlate the new information with related information or topics they have so learn in the past, and then the addition of the new learnings. So the best example is that you are adding your past experience to the new knowledge or new specific knowledge in the present and apply it. So in that case, the students are able to know more what is the this mean so the students make able to grasp the lesson and they will able to engage more participate in a lesson. So there are methods for stimulating recall. So these are includes ask if they have any previous experiences with the topic, ask questions about previous experiences, ask about their understanding of previous concepts, give them an example of an experience similar what they are learning from the present or in the present. So the next level, which is level 4 to 9, will be discussed by my group mates. Thanks for listening.
So, good day everyone. This is the continuation of the report, which is the level 4, presenting the stimulus selective perception, present the new information to the group in an effective manner. In order to present the new information to the group in an effective manner, you should organize your information in a logical and easy to understand manner. And try to use a variety of a different media styles such as the visual, skills, verbal, instruction, and active learning to suit people with different learning style. We all know we have a different learning styles such as the visual learners, auditory learners, reading and writing learners, and kinesthetic learners. So that is level number 4. For level number 5, providing learning guidance to semantic encoding to help your team learner and retain the information. Provide alternative approach that illustrate information that you are trying to convey. So, in order to providing the learning guidance, provide alternative approach that illustrate the information that you are trying to convey. So, help your team and help to learn more effective by including example such as the case studies, graphics, storytelling, and a more analogies. So that is level number 5.
Good evening everyone, especially to you sir. By the way, I am Gori Giselle and I am tasked to report the level 6 which is eliciting performance and the level 7 is providing feedback. Level 6 eliciting performance. At this stage, we need to ensure that our students can demonstrate their knowledge of what we've taught them. The way what they show, this depends on what they're learning. About a new process or skill, we will ask our students to demonstrate how to use it by role-playing or giving them some exercises. If we've taught new information to the students, we ask questions so the students can show their knowledge. Level 7. Providing feedback or reinforcement. After the students demonstrate their knowledge, the facilitator provide feedback and reinforcement any points as necessary.
Good evening everyone, I am Almarie C. Miao and I am tasked to discuss to you the level 8 and level 9 among the 9 events of instruction by Robert GAGNE. So the level 8, assessing performance or retrieval. It is the assessment of the learning performance of the learners. So in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the instructional events, administer a test for the learners to determine if the expected learning outcomes have been achieved. Performance should be based on previously stated objectives, and students should be able to complete a test or other measurement tool to show that they have learned the material or skill effectively. Learners should complete the test independently. So there are methods for assessing performance learning. These methods are written tests, short questionnaires or students raised a question or clarification, short essays, oral questioning, and other measurement tool to show that they have learned the material or skills effectively. So the next level is the level 9, which is enhancing retention and transfer or generalization. It helps learners to transfer knowledge and internalize new knowledge. So in this stage, students will show what they have retained retained information by transferring their new knowledge or skills to a situations. So give the learners resources that enhance retention and transfer of knowledge so that they are able to internalize the new knowledge and enhance his or her expertise. Repeated practice with effective feedback is the best way to ensure that people or students retain information and use it effectively. So there are methods of helping learners internalize new knowledge. These methods are having them summarize content, having them generate examples, having them create mind maps and concept maps, having them create outlines, and having them create other types of reference materials. So that's all my report, and thank you for listening.